I want to talk about the implications of infrastructure investments on the poor. Governor Rauf Aregbesola of Osun State has announced plans to demolish Fakunle Comprehensive Secondary School and replace it with a ShopRite mall. The school was built in 1956, handed over to the missionaries in 1975, and the state government has taken over to the school, and in their official wisdom, they think that destroying the school serves, or building a ShopRite mall serves a greater public purpose than a school that serves the educational needs of hundreds of school children, mainly from poor and low-income families. Dangote Petroleum Refinery sits on a land that is 8 times bigger than the whole of Victoria Island, Lagos. How did Dangote get this land? 16,500 hectares of land were taken away from 11 communities. I did not say 11 families or 11 people, 11 communities, housing hundreds of thousands of people. The land was taken away from them and handed over to Dangote to build a petroleum refinery. Contrary to the prevailing market rates, the original landowners got between 80,000 and 150,000 naira as compensation. That is between $80 and $300 as compensation for the land that was taken away from them. Let's move to Rivers State, where the same fate befell in Jamanza waterfront community. Residents of the community were forcefully evicted, their homes demolished, and the land was given to Silverbird Group of companies to provide fun and entertainment services for people of Rivers State. What about Enugu State, where residents of the coal camp staff quarters were forcefully evicted? The property actually belongs to Nigerian Coal Corporation. When they were evicted today, a pure water factory sits on that land. The pure water factory is owned by a relative of the former governor of Enugu State. The question begging for answers is, who really benefits from public infrastructure investments? Are the poor paying a very high cost for infrastructure investments? Are infrastructure investments producing outcomes, different realities for the rich and the poor, and widening the gaps between them? Our infrastructure, do the rich and the poor benefit equally from this public infrastructure investment? I agree with Olusegun Ogunleye's argument that Nigeria's infrastructural development drive is based on the hegemonic assumption that all citizens, despite their diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, benefit equally from development. That assumption is faulty, and I will tell you why. For instance, foreign investment collaborations with supermall corporations like ShopRite have mainly targeted the middle class, benefited the middle class with little or no benefits trickling down to those at the lower rung of the economic ladder. For big corporations like Dangote, the government often provides incentives, provides part of the initial cost of factory setup, loosens environmental and labor protections, and gives tax breaks that are never, ever given to small-scale businesses and the informal sector, who need far much greater support from the government. The demolition of a public school in Osogbo, of course, would threaten the right to education of thousands of children who have no other opportunities to access school in the private sector. And what happens to these children when they are forced out of school? They are forced into a coercive environment where they go into prostitution, crime, and other social vices. As these incidents demonstrate, the rich and the poor do not benefit equally from public infrastructure. Government and public actions are colluding to reinforce, reproduce, and institutionalize the divide between the rich and the poor in the name of infrastructure investments. Infrastructure provisioning is a noble ideal. I emphasize, it is a noble ideal, but that nobility is eroded when it is designed to subsidize the means through which the elite can ensure their livelihood and well-being at the expense of the poor. 2 weeks ago, I benefited from Heinrich Böll's Foundation supported my participation in an exchange program that allowed me to understudy social housing policies in Munich. I saw a lot of interesting things that were happening in Munich that are also peculiar to Nigeria that can provide some sort of a master plan or solution to borrow from. What are those sort of things? Just like Lagos or Abuja, Munich has a problem of high housing and rental costs, which push low-income houses out of the city district, out of the central district. The city population is likely to swell by 30% before 2020. So the city of Munich is putting their money where their mouth is, mainly through interventions designed to protect the poor and low-income earners and help them to meet their housing needs. The city intervenes through land grants, proper regulatory framework, subsidies, reduced bank rates for social housing investors, and supporting the formation of housing cooperatives. In terms of land grants, a certain percentage of all public housing is allocated to the poor. A certain percentage, that policy makes it possible for the rich and the poor to live in the same neighborhood. Liken that to someone like me and Dangote living as next door neighbors, enabled by a state housing policy. That is called social inclusion. The best practices from Munich do not show that there's El Dorado in Germany or that is already a paradise to aspire to. Simply, these important lessons point to the direction of the kind of development we want. Infrastructural development that do not inflict pain on one group and transfer the gains to another group. Thank you very much.